Busan's Yeongdo district was full of steep alleys and old apartment buildings. The neighborhood looked quiet and worn out. At the bottom of a narrow alley, there was a tiny side dish store called Hana's Kitchen. The sign above the door was old and faded. Every morning at 5, warm smells filled the cold air. Soybean stew slowly boiled in large pots. Stir-fried anchovies and fresh egg rolls cooked in the small kitchen. The delicious smell spread through the neighborhood. Some people joked that they could tell the time by Hana's cooking smell alone. The shop was run by a married couple. The husband's name was Eugene, and the wife was Hana. They had spent 15 years together in that tiny kitchen, making side dishes for the neighborhood. But strangely, they barely talked to each other anymore. When customers came in, they exchanged only short words. "We're out of eggs." 2 containers of soup. That was usually it. Most people thought they were simply a quiet couple, but they had not always been like that. Long ago, they used to laugh loudly together. They used to close the store early and take walks by the ocean with their little son, Ha-jun. But everything changed after the accident. Ha-jun was only 8 years old when he died on a rainy winter evening. A car lost control on a slippery road near the school crossing. After that day, Eugene stopped talking much, and Hana stopped smiling. Eugene blamed himself every single day. If I had picked him up earlier, Hana carried a different guilt. If I had gone with an umbrella. Neither blamed the other, but every time they looked at each other, they remembered the same painful night. Slowly, silence became part of their home. Still, the shop opened every morning, because life had to go on. Then one winter, a large franchise side dish store opened right at the entrance of the alley. It had bright lights, discount signs, shiny refrigerators, and dozens of perfectly packaged dishes. Customers slowly stopped coming to Hana's Kitchen. The new place is cheaper. They even have delivery. People said those things casually, but each word felt heavy to Eugene. Their sales dropped by more than half. Soon, Eugene started working extra delivery jobs at dawn. He barely slept. His hands cracked from the cold, and his back slowly bent from exhaustion. Hana never complained, but every night she quietly left pain patches on the kitchen table for him. One night, Eugene returned home later than usual after a delivery shift. The shop lights were off. That had never happened before. A strange feeling hit his chest. He rushed inside and found Hana collapsed on the kitchen floor. At the hospital, the doctor spoke carefully. Her heart condition is serious. She should have been treated much earlier. Eugene stared in shock. Why didn't she tell me? The doctor hesitated before answering. She postponed several tests because of the cost. That night, Eugene cried for the first time in years. Why did you carry this alone? But Hana, wearing an oxygen mask, forced herself to smile. You were already suffering enough. Eugene could not answer. A few days later, he opened the shop by himself. But he had never really cooked before. The soup was too salty. The egg rolls burned. Nothing tasted right. Then he found an old recipe notebook hidden near the kitchen shelf. Inside were Hana's recipes. But between the recipes were small handwritten notes. Eugene's back looked painful today. It's Ha-jun's birthday today. I couldn't say anything. If I leave first, will he still eat properly? Eugene turned the final page with trembling hands. There, Hana had written only one sentence. You are a good father. You still are. Eugene sat on the kitchen floor and cried silently. After that day, he kept cooking with the notebook beside him. His hands were clumsy, but he refused to give up. Then something unexpected happened. Old customers slowly began returning. One grandmother secretly left extra cash on the counter. A college student posted online. There is a small side dish store in Busan run by a couple who forgot how to smile. The story spread faster than anyone expected. For several days, there was a strange woman lingering around the side dish shop. She looked to be in her 30s, always wearing a long coat, quietly standing at the end of the alley while staring toward the store. But strangely, she never came inside. Some days she walked all the way to the glass door, only to turn around at the last second. Other days, she simply stood outside until the lights went out. Yujin noticed her more than once. At first, he assumed she worked for the new franchise store nearby. Maybe she was checking out the competition. But something about her expression felt different. She did not look curious. She looked sad, like someone carrying a heavy secret for a very long time. Then, one rainy evening, she finally entered the shop. The small bell above the door rang softly. Ding! Welcome, Yujin said automatically, while arranging containers of side dishes. But the woman did not answer right away. Instead, she slowly looked around the shop. The stir-fried anchovies, the rolled omelets, the soy-braised beef. Her eyes moved carefully, almost emotionally, as if she had imagined this place many times before. Then, with a trembling voice, she quietly asked, "Has this shop been here for a long time?" Yujin nodded. "More than 15 years. The moment he said those words, her expression shook. Her eyes slowly turned toward an old family photograph hanging beside the register. In the picture, little Hajun was smiling brightly. The woman suddenly froze. Her fingertips trembled. Then, almost like a whisper, she murmured, "So it was him." Yujin frowned slightly. "Who are you?" The woman could not answer immediately. Her lips trembled first, like someone trying to force out words buried for years. Finally, after a long silence, she spoke. "My name is Nami." She took a slow, shaking breath. 15 years ago, I was inside the car that caused the accident. The tiny shop suddenly felt ice cold. Yujin's hands slowly stopped moving. Nami lowered her head and continued. "That night it was raining heavily. I was sitting in the back seat and I remember seeing a little boy standing near the crosswalk." Her voice cracked. "He didn't have an umbrella." Tears filled her eyes. And then a few seconds later, she could not finish the sentence. The silence between them became unbearably heavy. Nami slowly reached into her bag and pulled out an old envelope. The edges were worn and folded many times. "I actually didn't know about this shop until recently," she said quietly. Then she began telling the story she had carried for years. After the accident, her father became a completely different person. He stopped drinking. He barely laughed anymore. On rainy nights, he often stayed awake until morning. Every winter, he disappeared alone for hours without explanation. As a young girl, Nami never understood why. But several months ago, before her father passed away, he handed her a small, old box in his hospital room. Inside were old bank books, copies of cash transfer slips, and dozens of notes with one address written repeatedly. Hana's Kitchen, Yeongdo, Busan. At first, I didn't understand what any of it meant, Nami said softly. Then my father finally told me the truth. Her eyes filled with tears again. He said, "I stopped a child's time that night." Yujin slowly lowered his eyes. Nami continued speaking through tears. "My father secretly sent money here every winter. Not because he thought he deserved forgiveness, but because he hoped your family wouldn't completely fall apart." Then she carefully placed an old bank book on the table. "My father saved this little by little until the day he died." Finally, she handed Yujin a folded letter. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside, the handwriting was shaky and uneven. "I do not deserve forgiveness. But I hope the people left behind do not live in loneliness forever." The shop became completely silent. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator could be heard. Yujin knew he should feel anger. For 15 years, he had carried pain and resentment deep inside his heart. But strangely, the first thing he felt was sorrow. And suddenly, he remembered something little Hajun once said long ago. "Dad, when you hate people too much, your heart gets sick." Days later, Hana was finally discharged from the hospital. Outside, something unexpected waited for them. The alley was full of people. Market vendors, old customers, college students, even neighbors who had not visited the shop in years. Nami, who came to apologize, worked for a small local documentary program. She had shared the story of Hana's Kitchen on television. After the broadcast aired, support came from everywhere. "This store reminds me of my mother. Please stay open for a long time. The food tastes like home." College students repainted the old sign for free. A carpenter repaired the broken tables. Market vendors started giving them extra ingredients. Little by little, the tiny store came back to life. Not because one person saved it, but because many small hearts gathered together. That evening, Hannah stepped back into the kitchen for the first time in weeks. The familiar smell of soup filled the air. Yujin stood at the stove, awkwardly making egg rolls again. Hannah took one bite and laughed through tears. "This tastes terrible." Yujin laughed too. Then Hannah quietly whispered, "But it still tastes like home." Outside, the winter wind was still cold. But inside the tiny side dish shop, warm steam slowly rose once again. And that night, Yujin gently held Hannah's hand for the first time in many years. Then he softly said, "Let's live again." If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to support more warm and emotional stories from Korea. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about love, family, hope, and healing. And tell us in the comments, what does home mean to you?